This is the bleeder valve. I'm going to loosen one bleeder valve. Let me take this off of here, this little rubber piece. I think that on that other one that was a 10 millimeter. This one feels like it could be also. So what I'm going to do is loosen this bleeder valve, and then I'm going to add fluid. Okay, this is loose now. Now the way this bleeder valve works is when it's closed, it's closed. When you unscrew it, fluid will come out. When you put fluid in the master cylinder and you pump it through the lines, it goes into the caliper. This is the high point of the caliper. So when you push down on it, fluid will come out of and back into this. So what I'll do is I'll make sure the other side is closed, because this is the one furthest from the master cylinder. And I'll get me a cup with a tube so that when I pump brake fluid out of this, it goes into the cup, and then when I take my foot off the brake, it sucks it back in, which keeps air from getting in the line. So right now the next thing I need to do is fill up my master cylinder and have my cup ready to catch the fluid here. So I'm going to turn you off while I go find what I need as far as fluid and the cup, and I'll be right back. Okay, I mentioned the other day that my master cylinder and my hydraulic clutch are in the floor, under the floor in the frame. This is where they are right here. The one on the right is the master cylinder for the brakes. The one on the left is the hydraulic cylinder for the clutch. That brake cylinder, the bigger one, is the one that goes to the front, because the bigger one is the one that goes for disc brakes. I am going to mash the pedal, and when I do, I'm going to have this little valve open that I showed you before. And hooked to the little valve is this cup. So what's going to happen is when I mash it down enough, fluid will come out of this valve, it will run down here, it will fall into the cup, and any air will go on down. And there's a tube inside that cup that will pull out anything that's down in there any taller than that spot right there. So I may want to try to set this kind of over here where it's not leaning down like that. That way I can get a better, that's pretty good right there. That's pretty good right there. And I can see that probably from up at the car. So I'm going to loosen this. I'm going to open this. I'm going to put this back on it. And I'm going to set this over here. It might be better if I put this on the other side of that, like that. And then we're going to go in the car and push the brake, and it should, after a couple of pushes, it should start pushing brake fluid into that cup. Now that brake fluid that's in there, it's a little dirty. It's 15 years old or so. So I don't mind if I pump out a goodly bit of it, because I like the idea of pumping out the old and putting in new brake fluid. That is not at all a bad idea to do that. Let me take a look and see. There's my cup, so you should be able to see that cup fill up as I mash that. The other side has the bleeder valve closed, so that there shouldn't be any fluid that comes out the other side. I'm going to mash that pedal down. And you may see a little bit came into that, and then I'm going to do it again. And I'm going to keep doing it. So I don't see anything coming out of the cup yet, so maybe I need to loosen that bit more. That's good and open, so I should be getting fluid coming through there. Okay, I'm beginning to see some in the line and in the cup, so that's good. So I'm just going to check and see how much is in my master cylinder. Oh, I still got plenty. So I'm going to keep on pumping. I see a little, and that fluid don't look too bad. I sort of have blown the cap off there. So I'm going to pump it a little more gently because I was pumping it pretty hard and I sort of blew this little cap up off the edge of that. My line that pulls it back in is right inside here, and I can see that this is at the level where that's down in the fluid. So there should be fluid that goes this way and then comes back. The whole idea of this is to get air out of here. So once the line is full of fluid, which it is now actually, and I've got this down snug so I know that no air pulled back into that, then I'll seal this off and I'll go to the other side. This is how you get air out of your brake line when you don't have someone to help you by opening and closing the valve like we used to do back in the old days before they invented these bleeder cups. You see those bubbles in the line? So I'm going to try to close this. See, this way I can check it without pulling this off. So I'm just going to snug this one to off for the moment. I'm going to go over to the other side and I'm going to do the same thing with it. In the process, I'll also check to make sure that I still have fluid in the system. So I've still got plenty of fluid in my master cylinder, so I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to mash down on this a few times and try to pump up enough fluid to start sending more fluid into that cup. I just saw a little drop run down right here. I noticed these are a little bit, they're not real snug in the chamber. So what I'm going to do is close this, and I'm just going to open it a little bit. Maybe that'll help keep much of that fluid as I can inside of that and send it out to this cup, which is what I want to have happen here. Now I can see bubbles coming into the line. What I want to do is send those bubbles right out of the line, right through the line, so that I don't have any air left inside of those calipers. You can see the cup is filling up. So we're getting more fluid there. So I'm gonna close this. And then I'm gonna mash my pedal and see if I've got pressure. So the answer is no. I mean, I don't really have enough pressure, so that means I've got still enough air inside there to be a problem. So I need to pump out more air. I'm gonna try to loosen this just a little bit. Can you still see that? Okay, now I'm gonna put some more fluid in the master cylinder because I pumped out. Well, let's see, I'll show you. So you see how empty that back chamber is now? So that's how much I pumped out. So I'm gonna fill this back up with some clean, fresh fluid. And then I'm going to go back to the other side with my cup. I'm going to pump some more into it. So one of the tricks to doing this is not to open that valve too far, because you see where fluid ran down the side. Now I want it to be closed, except just open enough for a little of that to come out. So that's completely closed. And that's how open I'm doing it. So that's not even a quarter turn, that's less than that. But I want the brake fluid to pass through this and not run down the side of that. And I should be able to watch it from up there. I just filled my master cylinder up like I was talking about earlier. So it is mostly full of good clean fluid. So even if I pump out a lot, all I would be doing was pumping away the old fluid and getting the new fluid in the line, which is good for it. Brake fluid loses its charm if it gets too old, and it turns brown, it gets kind of dirty. I wish I could remember who I saw. I saw somebody on YouTube, it might have been Musty One, and he had a brake system that wasn't working very well, and he just pumped and pumped and pumped old fluid out of it, and as he did so, new fluid came in the line, and the new fluid worked better than the old fluid. By the way, I do have a vacuum pump that you can use to suck fluid through the line, and I've used it before, but no more than I'm doing here. This is a pretty simple little method, and if I needed to, if I had any problem getting enough fluid and vacuum and stuff, then I suppose I could get the vacuum pump out. But for right now, for me, this is good enough. I'm going to pump this thing up to a little over half full, and then we'll seal it back off. See how my pressure, my brake pressure is. We call it pedal. See how much pedal I got. And by the way, I saved the old fluid. Sometimes you can use it for something. It's good for some things. What comes to mind is like if you want to wash paint off of glass, brake fluid will do that. Supposedly, I've heard people talk about that, and I don't want to get ahead of myself talking about what I can and can't do here. But, so I'm just going to pump this a few times. Do we see fluid going into that? And if not, I might not have it open enough. Oh yeah, I see fluid in the line. I don't see a lot up here, so apparently it's not pumping a lot. It's pumping some, and I still see a little bit. So I'm not going to loosen it any more than that. I'm just going to keep pumping it. Keep pumping it. I think one of the reasons I'm having trouble pumping it is because most of the air is already out of the line. So I'm getting pressure pretty quick here, which is a good sign. I can feel pressure in the pedal. So I think what I'm going to do is close it up right there. And what I got, see, you would see bubbles in this line if there were any. So I'm going to snug that back down. I'll take this off and put tires back on it. And we'll back her out and drive her around a little bit and see what she feels like. I'm going to put this back on. Well, take this rag and wipe that off there. I don't have anything leaking down here. Check both sides for that, and put my little rubber hat back on. That'll keep this thing from getting filled up with dirt and stuff. I had a feeling that was going to happen. Me and this old car's had us some good times, boys. Just think about putting these wheels on here, but a lot of times when me and this car have been messing with each other down through the years. I'm going to turn this on low and snug these up a little. might have to wash this tire later because I'm getting so much dirt on it with my dirty fingers. Oops. Wrong stuff. Oh, you know what? It cleaned the tire. How about that? This is that freeze off. And thought I was squirting window cleaner on here, but you know what? It took that stain off there pretty quick. No. Alright, I'm about ready to take this thing for a drive. Going out to wash my hands up. Okay, I'm sitting here in Hot Rod and I got pretty good tuttle, man. I want to move some carpet and stuff around. I'll tell you a little bit of what I figured out about this front end. You know, I've been talking about I'm going to go in here and take the steering rod off and move it. Well, I discovered on this right side, when I'm turned as far to the right as I can turn, the tire will touch the exhaust header. No, it won't. It'll touch the radius rod. And on this side, it won't. And it'll turn sharp on this side, but it won't on that side. And there's two reasons. One is that steering shaft, but the other is that even if I move the steering shaft, I would still be hitting the manifold. So actually, I would lose the ability to turn sharp to the left and wouldn't gain any on the other side. So it doesn't even make sense to mess with that. I'll just leave it alone. That's good to know before I have crawled under there and banged around on the steering box trying to figure it out. Let me get y'all a fresh battery and then we'll go up the road. That way we won't have to worry about getting back before it runs out. See you in a second. All right, let's try her out. See both wheels stopping there, that's good. And they're both rolling free, so that's good.
fun to drive. Not pulling to the left anymore. Brakes are working pretty good for what they are. I believe it's possible it might be the front brakes are working better than the back brakes. Well, that's normal, because anytime you've got disc brakes, the disc brakes are going to stop quicker than the shoe brakes. When I get disc brakes on the back of this, I believe it'll stop a lot better. That'll be real good. I'll have to change the master cylinder when I do that, because you need a dual disc master, but I think I can find one that'll bolt right into place where this one is. I talked about putting hanging a pedal up under the dash of this, but after I thought about it some more and looked at it some more, I believe I'm probably better off just to leave that alone, because that's a good, solid, workable setup under there that I'm not going to have any trouble with. The biggest trouble I'll have is, finding the pedals with my feet, but when you're kind of used to it, it's not a big deal. So yeah, this feels good. I'm probably gonna turn around, take her back to the house up here at the crossroads where I usually turn around at. But hey, it feels good. I like it a lot. Sharp turn to the left, but not right. So this is where I always spin around with the Studebaker when I'm messing with it. I should be able to almost spin it around this road. It probably does turn sharp enough. No, it doesn't. I got plenty of space between the radius rod on the front and that, so that's good. It's good to have some good turning action there. Coming or a mailbox? I think that's just a mailbox. Shining in the sunlight over there. Yeah, let's get out of here. Gear, and I'm doing about 2,400 RPMs. I still got another higher gear to go, which I don't need, but like if I was out on the big interstate highway and I wanted to keep up with all them fast drivers, I think I probably wouldn't have any trouble doing it. I'm not too scared about this car. It's kind of interesting because I would think I would be just to look at it, but it's a good driving car. It feels good. I get them brakes all tight, man. Good, I'm gonna love that. It's gonna be great. I can tell a really big difference in the front end. I've been realizing that something wasn't right with that front end for a while. I should have known it. I was thinking it was tire pressure, but I didn't even think to check the brakes. That's what it was, brake caliper. That's not an unusual thing. Things do go bad from time to time. So that's pretty normal. Alright, I'll put y'all back over here. take her on down to the back garage. Put her right in there. Appreciate you hanging with me. I'll talk to you in a little bit later on, somewhere, somehow, some way.